There have been seasons in my life where I've been up against it. There have been seasons where I've been in the middle of a rock and a hard place. And in those moments, underneath that crushing feeling, I've looked at my pain. I've looked at my circumstances. I've looked at everything falling apart. And I have asked the question, Lord, why me? Are you really still in control of my life? Because I'm in free fall. And if you've ever read the story of Paul and Silas in the book of Acts, the Bible says they were stripped and beaten with rods. And after they had been severely flogged, they were thrown into prison. They were placed in chains, hand and feet. So I imagine that they too must have felt like their entire world was falling apart. They must have looked at the circumstances and at their situation and asked the question, is God still in control? Is God still in control of our lives? And I wonder, did the pain become too much for their bodies to bear? I can only imagine how uncomfortable it must have been to be chained hand and feet. Did they, even for just a moment, ever doubt? Because I'll be honest, I have. And if you ever have felt these emotions, if you've ever wavered for a moment, if you ever wrestled with doubt, I want you to know that it's important to remember that faith and present circumstances don't always go hand in hand. You can have faith in God, but still find yourself going through hard times. You can have faith in the Lord, but your circumstances may still be challenging. Faith and present circumstances don't always go hand in hand. Paul and Silas had faith, but they were beaten and cast in chains. Paul and Silas had faith, but if you looked just at their circumstances, it would appear as though they were abandoned. It would appear as though they were forsaken. Just the environment they were in would lead you to believe that God no longer had his hand over their lives. But that's the beauty of God. The Lord is faithful regardless of our circumstances. Sometimes tough situations come around to serve a purpose. That purpose could be to remind you that God can make a way where there seems to be no way. That purpose could be to glorify God. That purpose could be for the Lord to demonstrate his healing power. So be encouraged. Your situation will serve a purpose. Paul and Silas had no hope of escape. They were too badly beaten. They were chained. They were in prison and surrounded by guards. There was no hope of escaping, but their situation served a purpose. If it were not for the chains, would Paul and Silas have known that God is a chain breaker? If it were not for them being confined to a prison, would Paul and Silas have known that God can break every stronghold? If it were not for their circumstances, would Paul and Silas have known that the Lord is a way maker? And that's what we need to learn. This season, your in will serve a purpose. Your present circumstances will serve a purpose. Where there looks to be no way out, maybe you are bound or chained in some area of your life, God will make a way if you keep your faith in him. And regardless of how it looks right now, don't let present circumstances overpower your faith.
The world loves to put facts and figures, probabilities and percentages around what can happen, what should happen, or what could happen. But the Lord isn't limited by our numbers and figures. God is sovereign and will do whatever he pleases. So today, if you're in a situation that seems hopeless, you don't have to despair. You don't have to lose heart, because God has the power to grant you victory against all odds. Think about David going up against Goliath. Goliath was 9 feet tall. He was a skilled warrior with specialized armor and weapons. David was just a shepherd boy from an average family. with no experience on the battlefield. By all measurements, David didn't stand a chance. But David was able to overcome this impossible situation by trusting in the Lord. David said to Goliath, "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies." It didn't matter how weak, how inexperienced, or how unprepared David was. He put his faith in God, and God enabled him to defy all human logic. We can depend on God for that same miraculous power today. Against all odds, you can defeat your Goliath. Against all odds, you can overcome whatever trial, whatever difficulty you are facing right now. It doesn't matter how unworthy, how unqualified, or how unlucky you think you are. If God is for you, then no one can be against you. If He says He's on your side, you better believe He's going to march you to victory. 100% guaranteed. No guesswork involved. His promises are greater than the predictions of man. So when the world tells you that you've got no chance, or when the devil tells you to just give up, stand firm in your faith. Keep on pushing forward. Your ability to overcome hardship is not predetermined by a statistical analysis or a roll of the dice. Your future rests in the hands of God, and He will equip you with whatever you need for the battle ahead. Because of the favor and providence of God, you can look at any situation and say, "With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible."
We all allow worry to creep into our lives. Worry about our jobs, worry about our finances, and most commonly, worry about our futures. Of course, it's natural to be anxious at times. There are some harsh realities in this world that we should all be prepared for. We should know how to recognize danger and how to deal with it appropriately. But when we let worry and anxiety consume us, it stops being adaptive. It becomes destructive. It becomes enslaving. Instead of focusing on God, we focus on all the things that could possibly go wrong, things that we usually have no control over. But there's someone who is in control. God. The God who made the heavens and the earth is the same God who is watching over us right now. He is intimately involved in every situation. He is infinitely good and infinitely wise. He sees everything that could possibly happen, and yet He commands us not to fear. He commands us instead to trust Him. He knows what's best for us, even more than we do. And He knows that in the end, Satan will be defeated. Love will conquer all, and the forces of darkness will be no more. See, no matter what's going on in our lives, God is in control. No matter what's going on in the world, God is in control. And whether you understand it or not, God is in control. Nothing is a surprise to Him. Nothing catches Him off guard. God sees the entire timeline of the earth from beginning to end. He was there at creation, and He will be there when the earth as we know it is no more. We, on the other hand, are only human. We can only see a tiny fraction of what God has planned for the people He loves. In the book of Matthew, Jesus says that in this world, we will have tribulation, but we must take heart, for He has overcome the world. 2,000 years ago, when Jesus died on that cross, and when He rose from that grave, He proved that nothing and no one could stop Him from getting to us. If we are followers of Christ, we don't have to be bound by fear. Because of His amazing love, we are victorious. We are more than conquerors. We are children of God. So what do we do with all this anxiety? How do we deal with all this worry we've been carrying around? The Bible gives us a simple answer. Pray about it. The Bible says to make our requests known to God because He cares for us. He wants us to know that everything will be all right. Instead of despairing every moment of every day, let's be people of prayer. Let's be people of faith. Let's be known as people who rise above anxiety and trust that no matter what, God is in control.